Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking about my university application process and some of the regrets that I had, or also some of the good things that I did that really just make me reflect back on that difficult time. Especially because going into grade 12, university was the biggest thing on my mind, and I was so stressed over it. I remember not eating, not sleeping, and just overall crying a lot because I felt so lost, and I think that I want to make this experience a lot easier and a lot smoother for people who are going into grade 12 or applying for universities. The process actually isn't that hard. It's just that once you understand it, everything is so easy to navigate. So, first off, my personal experiences. So, I actually applied for 7 programs. So, environmental studies and also linguistics. So I applied to linguistics at Ottawa for extended French, Western, and McGill. I also applied to urban planning at Ryerson and Waterloo, so both of those are co-op. Environment, resources, and sustainability at the University of Waterloo, also co-op, and also environmental studies at U of T. So number one on our list is just what do you want to do in the future? Because this is such an unsettling question. I know that when I was younger, even now, I get super stressed when people ask me that question. But in order to apply for university, you have to have even a small idea, because once you actually get into the program, yeah, you can transfer, but there's an additional process. So it would just be a lot easier if you did the work now instead of figuring out later that you don't like this program and then you have to pay money and then you might have to take extra time to complete the required courses. So it's definitely really important to attend different conferences, write quizzes, and ask your teachers and guidance counselors for advice, because for conferences, you can really network and talk to professionals who have already established their own position in the field, and you can get a really good idea of what you do, how much you're getting paid, and overall just the little details that you might need to know. So writing quizzes is also really important. I'm not talking about the BuzzFeed quizzes where you figure out what kind of garlic bread you are. In grade 10 in civics and careers, they ask you to do a lot of personality quizzes, and I'm telling you, take those seriously, because I got a lot of results saying, oh, you should be a lawyer. And I was like, no, my family told me to be a pharmacist, so I'm going to be a pharmacist. And your girl works at a law firm, so things really change, and it's really important to stay up to date on who you are and what you want to be. So speaking on that topic, even if you do think you have an idea of what you want to study in the future based on what you want to do, it's also really important to assess the different options that you have available to you, and also the career prospects. So for me, at first I was just gonna apply for linguistics, but a lot of people actually did urge me to apply for environmental studies, because based on the demand and the market and the growing trend for environmental justice, there's actually a lot more people who are finding that they are successful in their fields relating to environmental science or conservation or sustainability. So I'm not saying that if you want to apply for arts then you shouldn't, because you have to recognize that there's still a lot of people in arts who are very, very successful. So interior designers, people who do fashion, graphic designers, but it's really hard to find a job right now, and you definitely have to keep in mind what you should do in the future to guarantee your success, not only in 10 years but also in 20, 30 years, so so now that you've found your program that you want to study, make sure that you know the requirements and the recommendations. So some university programs, you also have to look at the courses and the averages that you need. For instance, for me, I only needed a 75 in English, which was easy. But in terms of sciences, I know that sometimes they require physics, sometimes they don't. It really just depends, right? And you have to remember that you need to have like at least the average that they specify, because sometimes they give you like concrete numbers, and you have to have all the courses and the averages that you need, because you don't want to spend your summer like in summer school taking a course that you've already taken before, just so that you can stay in your program. So it's definitely really important to keep in mind what you need so that your transition is a lot easier. Number 3, research well in advance. This is one of my biggest regrets. I should have spent my summer researching more about programs and universities, because by the time you get your application code for OUAC, it's just so much easier if you just send out your applications right then and there, because you're likely to get your responses back a lot faster. The reason why I had such a big length of time between when I actually received the codes and when I actually applied is because I spent so much time like hesitating, thinking, and researching. But if you just take some time in the summer before, or even now, while we're in the middle of this pandemic,
hey, it's Corona time right now.
You'll find that you can actually learn a lot of different things about your university. One of my teachers who has a massive impact on my life and a lot of the decisions I made is my chemistry teacher. Even if I'm not studying chemistry, he always has the funniest stories and the most important lessons. So he was telling us about how his uncle gave him like a little like analogy. So it kind of goes like this: would you rather play on a losing team or cheer for the winning team on the sidelines? So it sounds kind of funny and a little weird at first, but so think of it this way. If you go to a big university, you get like the prestige, and maybe you get a little bit more funding for the program, especially if your university is famed for that program. But on the other hand, if you go to a university that's maybe a little bit smaller, you can probably get more opportunities because you're competing for a position with a lot less people. So that's definitely really important. And something else that you should keep in mind is why your university is famous in its own right. So for me, I applied for Ottawa because I really like French, so I applied for extended French for linguistics. And for Waterloo, most people apply for co-op, and I also did. So both of the programs that I applied for at Waterloo were co-op, and the reason behind that is because I wanted some experience. And looking through the brochures, which I'm going to be talking about later, I found that a lot of people in my program actually get placed in law firms, like really big ones like Strikeman Elliott. So in other words, if the university is famous, there's probably a good reason. So research and look at what it can offer you. Number 4, asking friends for advice. For me, I have a lot of friends in first year who actually went to the same high school as me, and I'm so grateful to them for giving me all this advice and answering all of my annoying questions, because I feel like I've learned so much about university life. You want to know about the clubs, you want to know about the program, you want to know about the residents, maybe the food, and just student life in general. It's a really good idea to ask them, because as much as you look online, as much as you go in for a tour, you don't ever know what it's like to live there for an extended period of time, and what it's like to go to class every day or go to clubs every single week. Another really important thing to know about is interactions with peers and also professors. So this is mostly program specific, but sometimes you can have overlaps with different programs. So I remember asking some of my friends about their experiences with their classmates and professors, and I've gotten some really interesting responses that I would have never known if I just Googled it. So I've heard from some science students that people actually like sabotage each other's labs. Like they'll screw up your labs when you go get like a pipette or whatever, and you do not want to be in a toxic environment like that. So keep in mind that these people have great experience on campus, in classes, on residence. Number 5, jotting down information and dates. When you apply for university, they'll usually ask you to create an account through their portal, and so you'll be notified when they give you any letters for your offers, or also how much you can get in terms of admission scholarships. So for me, I actually have a little sticky note in my bullet journal, because so right here I have some information about my university login. So I have my usernames, my passwords, because you don't want to be that person who has to call in to the university because you've forgotten your password. Another thing to keep in mind are dates or deadlines. So these can be things like when there are March break open houses, when there are tours. For Waterloo, I made a little timeline because that's where I'm going. So I'll just show you guys right here. So the reason why I actually jotted this down was because I feel like a lot of these dates are actually really important, and missing the date is not great. So I wrote down March break open house, but that got canceled. I have You at Waterloo date. I don't know if other universities do this, but once you accept your offer, it's kind of like an advanced open house, because everyone else there is I guess they're just gonna be your classmates or your university mates. It's also really important to know when your residence fees are due, or your tuition. So I already paid my deposit for Waterloo, my $500 deposit, and it closes, I think it closes on June 1st, and on the website they actually said that if you miss it, there's going to be some trouble there. So you definitely do not want to be missing the important dates. Number 6 is visiting the university. So maybe a campus tour, or also just visiting your friends who actually do stay there. So today I was supposed to be in Waterloo so that I could experience some of that campus life, but unfortunately, due to the pandemic, everyone's been sent home and it's closed to visitors. But in the future, I definitely recommend going to the campus and maybe like staying a night or two just to figure out like what it's like. Tours are also really, really important because you're getting people who are probably really experienced in delivering the important information and showing you some of the most important places in your faculty, or also just on campus in general. You want to know things like accessibility. So if you need a certain mode of transportation, are there ramps? Are there places to place your bikes? And how easy is it for you to get to your classes or to like a supermarket? It's also really important to know what campus life is like, because for me personally, I really like quiet places. I know I'm not very quiet, but I like quiet places. So you want to know what your campus is like in terms of parties, and also what shared spaces are like, so common areas. This is why I recommend you go to the campus twice if you're really intent on going to that university. So going once when there are actually people there so you can experience like campus life. The other time can be about like just kind of like the geographical aspects and kind of the architectural wonders. Speaking about the architectural wonders, you also want to be loving the buildings and the functions of those buildings. So for me, when I went on tour, I got to see the environment building. So there's 3 of them and they're absolutely beautiful. I really like that Waterloo, they practice what they preach, and they really do try to be sustainable. They have living walls. They have really nice filtration and ventilation systems that are connected to the living walls. They have glass ceiling. For me, I really love natural light. So for me, it was a really great opportunity to figure out whether or not I really like the buildings. I've never been in the residence that I applied to, but next time, I guess. Something else that really helps you when you're applying for universities: brochures. You might be thinking, but you know, those are kind of garbage. But I'm telling you, they are not garbage. When I went and grabbed this, I didn't think I was going to use it at all, but if you can notice, I have these little bookmarks. I have these little page flags for the programs that I applied for, and also some of the OUAC codes. And sometimes your program or your chosen residence will also have their own brochures. So I have one for planning, which was my number one, and then environment, resources, sustainability, which was my number two. And this is St. Paul's, the residence I applied for, and this is the general faculty. So the moral of the story is you should really grab some brochures because there's a lot you can actually learn. So for instance, I knew that I wanted to continue with French in the future, and fortunately for me, St. Paul's actually has a French floor, which I find really, really cool. And they also have a lot of living learning communities that help you meet people who have the same interests, the same passions, or maybe they're in the same programs as you. So it's definitely a really cool way to make friends. But if I didn't pick up these brochures, I probably wouldn't have known at all. Number 8 is looking into residence fees and opportunities. So like I was just talking about with the living learning communities, I would have never known about that if I didn't do my own research, but that just really goes to show you how important it is to stay engaged and to be involved. So things that you want to keep in mind are meal plans, so how much you need to be paying and how meal plans work. And you also have to keep in mind that there are maybe restaurants nearby or supermarkets where you can get your food by yourself. But for me, since I realized that I don't really eat out that often, I could afford to go with like a light meal plan. Something else that you want to know is what kind of room you'll be living in and the associated costs. So for me, St. Paul's, they have super single rooms. They have single rooms and also double rooms. So I know that some other people have suites or like a thing where they share like a common room and also like 2 rooms on the side. So there are 4 people in total. So keep in mind that there are different options depending on where you apply and also what your budget is, because if you feel like you need a friend, I think having a roommate would be a really nice idea. That's what I'm going for. Like, I know that I'm super single. I don't need to be in a super single room to know that. What kind of living learning communities are accessible to you and which ones can you apply for and which ones should you apply for? So like I was just talking about, I would have never known about La Bastille, the French floor, if I didn't look into it. So you'll find that there's opportunities everywhere. It's just whether or not your eyes are open. Something else in St. Paul's that I find really interesting is a community called Women in Engineering. So you can really figure out what kind of people you want to be around when you apply for your residence. Number 9, applying for scholarships. You know, you want to get that free cash money. You know, you want to get that cha-ching. You want to make those stonks. So one thing you can do is look at your university website and look at the costs that are associated with the programs and also different scholarships that you can either apply for or scholarships that you're immediately eligible for. So for me, when I got my offers, they usually gave me a little tab on the bottom where they were talking about how much I was eligible for. And those are called admission scholarships, where they kind of just give it to you based on your average. But there are also scholarships that you need to apply for on your own, that maybe through the university website. You can also apply through your school. So my school has a guidance website and they post all their scholarships with their deadlines, what students they're looking to accept, and also how much money you can get out of those scholarships. So it's a really good idea to give yourself maybe like a week in advance, because you want to make sure that you've contacted your references if you need any, and that you've had time to look it over so you use the right your. Scholarships are really important because not only do they make your burden a little less, it's also really nice looking when you graduate, because they read it to the whole school, and the whole school knows that you got that free cash money. And it's also really nice to put on resumes. I know some people who put their like scholarships on their resumes because it shows that they have initiative and that they are quite elite, might I say. Thank you for the support as always. If you found this video helpful, maybe you should leave a thumbs up and subscribe for videos on when I actually start packing seriously and when I start moving into university, because I'll also be making some more videos about residence and maybe some tours. So we'll see. But if you have any more questions, you can comment them below, or you can also message me personally, and I'll try to help you to the best of my ability.